Oh, sorry. I was just reading a book about everyday witchcraft and looking at the spells for to physically torment an enemy. The one I was most excited about was there's some spells in here for how to where is it? Here. For blessing appliances. So anyway, can you see that? Is that in focus? Where's the focus? I don't know. I don't think it's going to focus. I don't think this one focuses. 1972, the checkout counters. That's what you would have seen. So yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the suburban housewife version of witchcraft. So hello, Sean. Saw you there. So I looked at the Discord and the idea of seeing more what goes into the process of the making of the books is actually a great idea for this kind of format. I think it works really well. Oh my God, excuse me. So I was going to talk a little bit about the book that we're working on right now. Which I was going to say which but obviously which. And then I can talk a little bit about some of the process. So the my friend James, who's on Instagram as Astralize, has been making these really cool paperback books that show off his collection of vintage paperbacks. And he's a collage artist, and so these books kind of are an extension of that. He kind of does some cutting and pasting, and there's no text. It's just page after page of interesting cover art. And oh my God, excuse me. I'm finally sitting down, so it's like my body is resting. And I love what he does, and he's such an amazing human being. That I wanted to do something with him, and I kind of felt like I wish I'd worked on this with you, because I would really love to see a book like this have text that explains what we're looking at here. And so a couple of years later, fast forward, here we are today. What I basically did was took maybe the best third of his collection, and then added in a bunch of my own, and also wrote a lot about what we're seeing. So one thing that's kind of interesting is that we kind of take witchcraft culturally for granted. And witchcraft in the UK was illegal until 1951. It's illegal to practice witchcraft. Very strange to say that, to think about that. It just doesn't seem like something that would be an issue. And so then this book came out in 1953, I think 53. And this changed everything. Witchcraft Today by Gerald Gardner was the first book written by someone that was very vocally and publicly practicing witchcraft. And so it became it was taken seriously as a religion for the first time. And those seeds got planted And he had then a number of proteges. And then you fast forward 20 years and you get into this book, What Witches Do, which talks about the Sanders, Alex and Maxine Sanders. And so the two main branches of witchcraft in the 20th century, you have Gardnerian magic and Alexandrian witchcraft. They both liked to be naked. Gerald Gardner, kind of by the book. The Alexandrian magic, a little more like chaos magic, a little more what works. And the other difference is that the Gardnerian magic came out of Gardner was an anthropologist by nature. His idea was studying world cultures and kind of pulling these things into what then he made his practice. The Alexandrian magic appears to kind of have come out of Gardner's garden, no pun intended, with the major difference that they had a full-time press agent. So when you see a lot of that sexy witch imagery, Maxine Sanders was beautiful, a lot younger than Alex, and they were in the tabloids constantly looking for publicity. And so as a result, the 70s version of pop culture witchcraft had kind of the sexy blonde aesthetic attached to it. It's not a far leap then to get to, you know, the women in the great boots and long hair and stockings. I started to say fishnets, but they're not. And so, you know, the book isn't really a serious study of witchcraft. It's just the idea of how these things converged with pop culture, that you had the idea of feminine empowerment mixing with the idea that you could make your life something more fantastic than it was. You see astrology skyrocket with especially teens and then older women. And so in the face of that, you would pick up a science fiction book and there's an ad to become a witch. So the point of Spellbound is just, it's more sociological than it is occult, because so many of these things, you know, I've got to be honest, I haven't really read. Like I might read parts of it. You know, there's a really great one, Confessions of a Witch, of a woman. She approached parapsychologist Hans Holzer at an event in California where he was speaking. These are two different, the US and UK paperbacks. And said she wanted to tell her story. And her story reads a lot like if you were trying to fake a story about sexy witches. There's a lot of breast groping and a lot of illicit activities in these, as you would expect from the covers. You know, so in terms of trying to find ways to correlate some of this with something as sincere as Gerald Gardner's book, it feels very disrespectful to Gerald Gardner to try to do that. And that's not my intention at all. It's not trying to make fun of anyone. But it is kind of that, again, the convergence of pop culture. And you know, and then the Gardners are in a weird space where I do respect them, but I'm not certain how to take their position. I really wish, like on a personal level, that I could understand it better. Because when you see magazines like this come out, where you've got her butt and articles about secrets from the love sorceress of America and the occult guide to sexual vigor, um, what was their motivation? Were they serious but just wanted attention on the practice? Was there some part of it that was conscious camp? I'm sure there's people that know a lot more about them who could answer those questions. I'm not going that deeply into it as much as just kind of giving the overview, because really the book is about design. It's the aesthetics of this. You had magazines like this is from 1971 as well, an American occult magazine. So it's a lot of pantomime in my world, meaning there's a lot of aesthetics. When I'm buying books like Confessions of a Witch with a cover like this, I'm not treating it like a textbook. I am looking at it in that bizarre convergence of mysteriousness and exploitation that kind of grew out of my man, myth, and magic childhood. And so all that being said, the book is going to be amazing. It's going to be incredible. It's filled with super, super cool graphics. Do I have any other ones up here? Not within reach, but things like you're seeing online, great graphics. I'm talking about the cover artists for the things that are painted. I'm talking about even just kind of like I did here, explaining who Gerald Gardner was and trying to give you a little bit of historical presence. If the Big Le Pater book is an entire college seminar, this book is like an afternoon lecture. I get pretty detailed about certain things, but just enough for you to be able to understand how these things happened in a general sense, but so that you can view something that happened in 1973, 1975 through the lens of what if you were a little older at that time. Like for me, I was a little kid. I was 8 years old seeing, stuff like this in the checkout counter. So what if I was a little older, or I had someone where I could say, well, how did we get to this point? So that's kind of what's going on with that. And I feel really good about it. It's super fun. And the book is pretty much done. It's going to, as often is the case, it's going to wind up being a lot more pages than I think we thought. But yeah, this one's gonna go to the printer really quickly. So that one's going to turn around very quickly. And so that's kind of the overview on what we're doing with Spellbound. And Dawn, who's doing the slipcased edition cover, is just someone I'm a big fan of her art. I love what she does. I think she's got a great vibe. And something that James has done with his paperback editions is done artist editions to kind of keep it a little modernized, a little collaborative. And I thought, man, with us not having the gallery, these alternate covers are kind of a fun way to do an interaction. Working on Caligula, it was great that I got to work with Dave McKean and Bill Sienkiewicz on something. I'm so sorry with this lighting. What's going on? It's my levels kicking on or off. And so that's what this was. Who's a contemporary artist that's maybe not at that level, but is really talented, that you could do a fun thing with. And James and I both at the same time thought, what about Dawn? So the fact that we were both thinking that kind of illustrated that she's the right person. Are there any questions on. Yeah, I agree with you, Sean. Yeah, I mean, it was well after I purchased most of these that I actually read them. Um, and so then so something, the reason we didn't do the salon last time is just because I was really unclear on. I don't know why the lights are going in and out. I'm not moving. Um, I'm not used to talking at people. I like interacting. And so we're still trying to get our head around this. But one thing that we can do then that seems uh it'll need more preparation, but that I think we'll be able to do um is take people through more of the process of how we're making these books happen. And so I guess first of all, if someone's here that has a specific question, you should please put it in so that I can answer it directly. Um, I'm not going to talk about content unless someone asks. What I'll talk about right now is just kind of some of the mechanical, physical parts. A huge thing for me is I really don't like. You look at stone lithographs from the 19th century and they look gorgeous. And then you look at modern posters and they're offset and they don't look as good. So it's kind of like, well, why as the years progress, is quality going down? And so a big thing for me is there's a lot of publishers where I would get books and I would just, oh my God, it happens so much. Like every book on the Grand Guignol I got, I would look and I was like, this is a 72 DPI JPEG off the internet. Pages in books print at 300 DPI. So if you take a low resolution image that's this big and you try to blow it up, it's going to be really fuzzy. And I understand that most publishers are looking at images as a very secondary thing, but even publishers that claim to be art book publishers, it happened very frequently that I would be very disappointed with the image quality in the book. Um, I very rarely buy Taschen books anymore. I was very devout about that for a long time. I just think they got so big and so corporate. I don't know that the quality is there. Um, and it's kind of a universal thing. I don't fault them. I'm glad that they're doing well, and I think the subject matter is great. But for me, I want books in my own library that have really superior imaging, where when you look at the printed page, as close as you get to it, it holds up and that it's pushing the edge of what the printer can do. And even more than that, it's not making the visuals secondary. And nothing makes me crazier than if you buy like a book that's an art book and the imagery is secondary. So this is just me. This is just like a personal thing. It's kind of like, why did you write that movie or song or whatever? Well, it didn't exist in the world in the way that I wanted to see it. So, I'm buying all these incredible 19th century books and not having any experiences with contemporary books that were coming anywhere close. I'm going to mention one in particular. A publisher in San Francisco did a reprint of Die Flagge, the Austrian periodical. They nailed that one. So there are publishers that do it, but they're generally smaller and they're generally more museum minded. So the first thing that I do is go through the library here and pull out books that are kind of the inspiration for the experience that I want someone to have with the book. And things like paper stock, it's such a small thing to go heavier. it's such a small thing to do uh, more detailed color corrections. It's such a small. All these things are small increments, and what happens is each thing may add 50 cents a unit or $1 a unit. And if you're a major publisher and you're trying to get the books down to a $20, $30 price point, you have to look at that. I get it, especially if it's a $30 book and you're putting it into a bookstore. What are you getting? $8? So your cost per unit has to be so low. So us using Kickstarter to go direct to collectors means that if it's an extra dollar, it doesn't matter. We just do it, and we keep kind of stepping those things up. And so that's one important point. There's a couple things here. Yeah, Theodore mentions where the text takes up 3/4 of the page. I'm so the opposite. I've had people be confused. I write the books in InDesign. And I do that because the way all the art flows to me is the most important thing. And of course, I'm a writer. I love the words, but not more. And I think that the traditional design, I'm doing a book right now for Titan. They're not starting design until they get the text, which is fine. Their books look great. That's what they do. That's what works for them. But my brain doesn't think that way. We're working on a Gail Pataki book. I want the full page of the painting, and then I want 2 spreads with details. That's just what I want when it comes to a book. And there's so many books of painters that I have where they're kind of almost like placeholders until you get to see the originals. But what happens when you can't see the originals, And I think that's another thing I'm trying to do with our books is make it not feel like a catalog, but like you're physically at an exhibition and you can get closer to things. Yeah, Sean, you're a Doctor Who freak. I love that era in Britain. I have a super funny Doctor Who story. The very first episode I watched was John Pertwee. And I didn't know about the reincarnation and all of that. Not reincarnation, what's the word? Regeneration. So I'm watching, waiting for the guy that I'd seen in all the pictures to show up, the curly-haired guy, Tom Baker. And it wasn't until a good 30 minutes in the episode where I realized, they're calling him Doctor. And I turned it off because I was so confused. But it's just very funny that I had no idea what was going on. Theodore, thank you so much for those comments and compliments. Yeah, I mean, the thing about the books that are hundreds of dollars, I get it. When you're wholesaling, you got to cut. I mean, distributors are taking more than 50% now. Could be 60 to 90%. So if you see a $300 book with what it takes to research, and I mean, oh my God, it's just a bad time for publishing in terms of it's not getting any cheaper. So I'm going to empathize with it. It's just not a form or a pattern of design that I like. I think I'm more romantic about it than I am technical. And yes, I am a John Pertwee fan, and my eyes are super dry. This happens every time we do one of these. I got to keep eye drops up here. So what do you want to know about? Should I keep talking about? I mean, the technical stuff, I'm kind of just explaining my process, but this is another thing that's hard about these salons is if people watch them later and they say, oh, well, I wish someone would have explained, oh, Sean did have a question. I didn't catch that. Was the episode The Demons, or you mean Doctor Who, an influence Uh, I mean, by the time I saw Doctor Who, I was already completely up to my eyeballs in all of this. I didn't see Doctor Who until I was maybe 7th grade, around then. Yeah, so I was already way immersed in all of this by then. Um, Xyrother. Will the book feature covers from other countries besides the UK and the US? And the answer is almost no. There's one magazine I have from Australia. Um, but the area that I'm studying with this, most of my collection is American. There's a lot of British stuff in there. I think that when you start seeing other countries doing um, releases, I mean, that opens up a whole other web. There's obviously incredible design. Like, I love the Polish movie posters from the 70s. Like, talk about, you know, some completely mind-blowing aesthetics that were happening. But the real drivers for this were American and British publishers. It just is what it is. Um, and the audience is American mostly for our books. And so I don't know really if, what the witchcraft resurgence looked like in, say, France in the 1970s. But I feel like, that, even when you look at this stuff, the driving force of a lot of this was the UK. A lot of the campiness of this stuff was the US. And it's only at like 150-page book or something. The other thing that's really hard with this is this could easily be a 300-page book. There's so much great stuff. And the yeah, that's a whole other thing I could talk about with books, is it's like you have to kind of know where to stop. Richard asked about clearing licensing for the art. I didn't, and I'll tell you why. Legally, we're I think that a book that was just reprinting the images might not have this, but for us, like, there is a strong essay, and the artworks are being presented as an addendum to that. And for that reason, and I've looked at other books that were doing similar things, you can't make any claim on the copyright yourself. I think if you were taking, an artwork and putting it on a mint tin and trying to sell that as a product, you would get in trouble for that. I think if you're writing about this book and the contents and the art director and all of that, and you're putting the work in that context, legally that falls under fair use. And so we didn't have that problem with this in particular. Even with the other books that we've done, the areas where people would need to be careful is when you're adapting something for another, like if I took this cover art and took the title off and then made it into a new book, it had nothing to do with this in any way. Like, yeah, you're ripping off the cover. Like, you get sued for that. This is different. I hope I explained that. but that's the point, is it's the fair use, it's academic, uh, it's an analysis of the work of which these photographs of these objects then become illustrations in that explanation. So that's a very specific, narrow academic area. Feminist Deshazia, you're under a secret account. Okay. Deshazi asks about a lot of feminist content. What are my thoughts behind this? Okay, I don't know how to address this. This is going to be very funny, like off the roadmap here. I'm going to tell you a problem I'm having. So, all these books are by dudes. All these books are by dudes. This was written by a dude. And so, the thing that's really interesting to me is that I see sociologically this incredible wave of feminine empowerment. I see it being incredibly connected to feminism. And then I read the horoscope books, and there's articles in there about, you know, how to make your boss happy. And so I have not yet figured out how to address how embarrassed I feel looking at like this boot of the patriarchy. And I'm not trying to white knight anything here. I'm not trying to like, I don't mean kind of savior complex, but I'm saying it even makes me uncomfortable how much it feels like there are male hands trying to build the sandbox. And I don't think that I'm going to be able to get into that really well in this book. I do suspect that that's something then that got broken away from in the decades that followed. I'm remembering at this time women's ability to have credit cards, like all of that, were still very compromised. But I was not expecting the two main lineages of magic in the US and the UK in the 70s to be both led by men. I was not expecting that. And I guess I knew it, but just, witchcraft is not something I had really studied heavily before this year in that way. So the answer to Shazia is, you are correct. I see it. It's there. But when you step away from the flowery words and you look at the practice, I can see very clearly how narrow that street was. And I'm sad that we're in a time where that's an issue again. I'd like to think that 10 years back that things had changed from what we're seeing in these things from the 70s. So that's, I'm kind of talking to you more than I'm really answering your question. I see it, you see it. Yes, it's there. I was just really, really surprised when I was digging the shape out, how much I kept hitting walls of testosterone, which, then also fits into, the market for these. So it's super complicated. I'm trying to distill my thoughts enough to make sure that the book makes sense. But the thing that you're asking about, I feel like you could write 3 or 4 different books from opposing perspectives, and they could all be right. There is no one witchcraft. It's too vast. It's too vast of a thing. It means too many things to too many different people. So I'm glad to know that. I just kind of have to stick to my lane, which is the way that it converged with the idea of empowerment and hopefully celebrate that it was a couple steps forward. And then also just kind of relax a little bit and say, yeah, but it was also, it's okay also for it to have been fun, in the sense of that entire realm of cinema, that, horror cinema, all of that kind of stuff. And just the aesthetics of astrology and horoscope, and me thinking about making this make sense in 150 pages is like Jared Kushner saying he's going to go solve the Middle East. I just feel like there's no way it's happening, but I just want to do my best to be thoughtful and respectful, um, and just address what I can. So anyway, I'm just commenting on this in that way because it's been a big thing. It's been a big thing I've been thinking about. I see it, I feel it, and a lot of the content is, making a lot of shapes I didn't really expect when I tried to view it through a really humanist lens. With that much art available, is there going to be a second volume? No. No, Robert, because the second book, is there one here, is The Spectral Vision of Gothic Romance. We're doing 5 books with bibliomancers. The first one is Spellbound. The second is The Spectral Vision of Gothic Romance. The third is called Binding the Devil. Those are going to get really dark. This is kind of the Bewitched meets, I don't know, Morticia Adams, Bell Bottoms crowd. Then you're going to move into the Gothic romance. Then you get to the dark side of the 60s. A lot of witchcraft books that are really fear-mongering. Like there's nothing cute to it. That's going to be Binding the Devil. The fourth one's called Mask Garden. Mask Garden is a lot about kind of the way identity and perhaps body horror. There was a big thing in the 70s, a lot of weird distorted face kind of imagery. And this is a paperback that James had done, and I was looking at them and I'm like, I see how this makes an entire shape. That's going to lead a little bit into the parapsychology and science of, astral projection and things like that. And then the fifth book is called The Astral Eye. That's going to be kind of the utopian ideal. That's going to be where mysticism, if you look at it kind of an ascendant scale, it's going to be kind of the positive parts of where it landed. The idea of development into a superhuman, the idea of ESP, the idea of, we're probably going to get a little culty with it. Half to keep it fun, but also half because there's just a big part of the 60s and 70s. So it's going to be more, but the optimistic part is where it ends. So with each one of them, we're just going to be limited in what we can do. And I'll always encourage people to buy James small paperback softcover ones, because they'll have a ton more images, and the content that I'm writing that kind of gives you the cultural overview will still apply. But his book is kind of almost like going to be like the deleted scenes version. So the idea is hopefully that they work together to give a much fuller experience if someone wants that. Any research into the photographers or the models? This is going to be a disappointing answer, Sean. I'm having very, very bad luck with that. I am finding some credits for designers, but a lot of this was stock photography. A lot of it was just corporate commission stuff. there are a couple things that I have found I can't share because I feel like it's, uh, you know, if people wanted it to be public, they would have made it public. So I mean, I am finding things, but not stuff that I think I should share. Um, the biggest thing is like Jeff Jones did some covers. A lot of these artists uh, are fantastic painters, not names that people would know in a general sense, but I'm working very hard to identify every painting that's in the book. Choice of materials for the books. I mean, Theodore, this is going to be a very boring answer. The printer will send it to you. You can send a book to a printer if you said, hey, I want it to look like this or feel like this, or you can take pictures or you can describe it. But every printer I've worked with has been great about sending samples. And 80% of the time they get you almost there. There are times when I've had to, re-articulate what I'm doing. Another thing is that there's things that I've wanted to do that just kind of don't feel like they're going to work. And I have to step a little more contemporary than I want to. But I know that's what's going to be the best presentation. In a perfect world, I would be letterpressing every book and you'd have all that texture and all of that. But, then at that point, it's like, you're selling a book like this for $200. Then, like, I'm not saying I haven't bought books like that, but I'm not in that world. Like, really, for me, our books are not cheap. But it would be very easy to get into that range that I know people here are familiar with, where you get into that $350 range. That's very normal for what we do, but I feel like that's too much. I feel like it's too much. I'm trying to let these books be ways for more people to learn about these things that I'm passionate about. And so I feel like the only one so far that we've really gone crazy with is Le Pater. But with these other ones, it's like we kind of have these barriers at like $75 and $130 that we're trying to not cross. And then Le Pater is, I mean, that's a hard, whatever it is, $180. Like, that's, if you look at a $300 art book or you look at ours for under 200, I want to feel like people are feeling like it's a deal, because $200 for an art book is a lot of money for a lot of people. And I don't want to just be selling to, 50-year-old people that have corporate jobs. I want someone who's 30 that loves art to reasonably be able to afford it for themselves if they want to. But yeah, when you're ready to print, you just talk to a printer and they'll send you samples and stuff. And it's, and like a lot of like the sheets with the gold and stuff. The problem is not finding an option. The problem is that there's too many options. And it's crazy when there's like 20 golds and they're all just slightly different. And you can't really tell how they're going to look against the art of the fabric. And so you're laying things over and you're getting up to see it at the crack of dawn, and then you're looking at it early afternoon, and you're looking at it by lamplight to see the colors. So the problem is just there's too many options. But that's a good option to have. I mean, it was a good problem to have. And so like with Le Pater, I mean, same thing. It's just, I tell them the criteria that I have. I want to make sure that the art is crisp. Like, we were looking at doing the Anton Cedar book on an uncoated stock because I love the feel of that. And then I got a book in the mail that was on uncoated stock, and everything was just a little bit soft on the edges. And I was like, I can't do it. I need the crispness. We're taking these images and we're blowing some things up so much. I'm like, I can't afford to lose more resolution. We have to do it on a tight weave paper and do a spot varnish to kind of give it that lens of focus and sharpness. So, a lot of this is just experience at this point, and personal taste. If you were doing a photo book, for example, and you wanted it to feel like it was printed in New York in the mid 70s, you would go with an uncoated stock probably, because you'd want it to feel a little softer in focus and a little dirtier in terms of clarity. So everything has its own. If you're doing any kind of publishing, and this applies to any project, I feel like you have to kind of lay out first, what do you want it to feel like, and be able to articulate it. And if you can't do that, you're going to get lost in the number of options. Like the stock for Anton Cedar, I knew what I wanted it to be. I thought I could get it with this other stock. And then I looked at examples and I realized I couldn't. And so I just fell back into the lane of what I needed to do for that. So that's the thing, is just whatever it is that you're doing. Like if you're trying to do something with sheet music and you want it to feel like old Ricordi 19th century lithography, you're going to have to do 2-3 color PMS printing plates. So it's block color. You're going to have to go with an uncoated stock so that it feels like paper from that era. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your questions a lot. Which can be feminist liberation, but can also be sexy kitsch. Yeah, I guess that's kind of where my head is on it. It's not that they have to exist in the same space, but just that the map was just a different shape. Any sensible thinking about it reveals the shape. I just hadn't thought about it. I think I was very casual with my aesthetic appreciation of design and nostalgia and all of that. And I hadn't thought about it culturally. But yeah, I mean, it does make sense. And the witchcraft community, the witchcraft community is definitely female oriented nowadays. I think it was back then too, which is kind of why it felt a little weird to me that, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to go too far down this, but it was Alex and Maxine Sanders, but they call it Alexandrian witchcraft, and he's an older dude with a 17-year-old girlfriend that's nude in all the picture. It just, you know what I mean? Like, it was a little they had a full-time PR agent. You know what I mean? Like, it's all just kind of like everybody looks at her and thinks that the witch thing is her. But then you've got these dudes behind. It's just, I don't know. It's just a little, it was just weird. It's a little weird. Anyway, I don't want to, I'm gonna ramble. I can appreciate some of it for what it is. And then other parts, it's like, again, it's just, I think the best way I could put it is you could take 4 people, be right. Someone could be saying it's absolutely feminist, and someone could say it's absolutely been co-opted by misogyny, and they'd be totally right. Like, all of these opposing views would be completely correct for a different segment of the population. Which, talk about things nowadays. Let's have a political talk. That's one of the things about the internet. is the world was never meant for all of these things to converge. It's kind of like Crisis on Infinite Earths when they all occupy the same space. We're not meant to do that culturally. And things should be able to exist in their spaces. And so with Spellbound, it's a lot of camp and a lot of respect from me academically. And definitely having fun with it, but also trying to be educational and respectful. And I feel like that's all I can do in 150 pages. And I don't ever want to be the guy saying, well, hey, not my problem. But I think I can, if I'm genuinely being respectful, it's also okay for me to say, there's no way for me to really address the depth and breadth of this beyond just this small thing I'm trying to say. Am I listening to Donovan? I mean, obviously I've had Donovan in my head like crazy. No Santana. What Tim Buckley would you think? Song to the Siren? No Black Sabbath. And I've not been listening to Fleetwood Mac. You guys would be mortified to know what I'm listening to consistently. I'm sure of it. What have I been listening to? I've been listening to Webb Brothers a lot. I really love the Webb Brothers. And I've been listening to a lot of Achtung Baby, the U2 album. I love the production on that. And then a lot of Aretha Franklin lately. And then the other thing, and this is just the algorithm kicking it to me, I'm just going to say it because we're here in the salon, an uncomfortable amount of music that I would never listen to if it wasn't like what I heard in high school. Like I listened to Love Will Find a Way by Yes 3 times in a row today. And then it played REO Speedwagon and Richard Marx after that. And I let it go. But consciously, it's been the Webb Brothers and U2. You know, I think a lot of it with me with music when I'm working is that a lot of the repetition of pop music helps me when I'm writing and designing. It just kind of does. I think that if music is, I feel this is, you know, not a reflection on the Webb Brothers or U2, but if I stop to listen to the music, which I would probably do if I was putting Tim Buckley on or something, I kind of stop writing. Like I can't listen to Leonard Cohen very well when I'm working. The Ark I've been listening to a lot. Love that band. And I think that's it. I think we made it an hour. Definitely, you know, post in the Discord and tell me kind of what helped here or what didn't. I'm not, you know, some people are naturally good at, I just fall in the realm of social media. I'm not. I very much I like people and I like talking with people. I don't like talking to people. So I always feel a little what's the word? I don't want to say it's not awkward. I want to be helpful, and I tend to not like. Man, I wish I was a comedian that could just, you know, talk to an audience for an hour or so. But I'm just kind of not wired that way. That's why I do the things that I do, because I want to be thoughtful about interactions and you know, so finding a way to make the Patreon, I think the two things we're really trying to achieve is I feel like social media is dead. It just doesn't know it yet. I feel like it's just such a bad scene. They're harvesting our data. It's just not great. So the idea here is like, well, what if you had a salon? What if you had a walled garden where it's like people could come and hang out and talk to other people and be looking at art and talking about it and, learning, supporting all of that. So it's kind of our mission here. And, we're slowly getting there. Hopefully it's better now than it was a year ago. So yeah, so anything about what we do that helps you, or if there's anything, even if it's just kind of like, how did you do this thing? Or why did you do this? Or, you know, what's this person like? Or whatever. I'm happy to talk about that stuff. And excuse me, I don't know Astra. I don't know that band. I don't know Astra. I listen to a lot of the Church. Is anyone here a fan of the Church? I don't know. Electronic music, you might have lost me. I'm not an electronic music fan. But the Church is going on tour this year. So if you can see them, you should make a point to. But if no one else has any other questions, we are at 57 minutes. So I think we can just kind of wrap up. I very, very sincerely appreciate everyone being here. And what am I supposed to say? I'm looking in the private chat here. Normally there's something they want me to say. I'm happy that you're here. Thank you. I think there's a few days left on Spellbound. And then the big one is we're doing another printing of Le Pater. I don't know, I thought we'd have those books forever. We had so many of them, and then they just kept selling, which is a beautiful thing. Beautiful, beautiful thing. And so we haven't had them now for half a year, about 6 months maybe. And that's a book that I really want in the world. And so we're not doing another soft cover. We're doing the big hardcover, but we're doing it with the expanded text. And I'm even doing kind of another pass with tiny corrections, clarifications, and revisions, like typo type things. Like not any if you have the soft cover, you have the pretty perfect text. It's just, again, typos or little grammatical things. If you have the old hardcover, I really think this new text is better. If you have the soft cover, there's nothing like seeing it in the big, big, beautiful hardcover. So I'm not trying to hard sell anybody on getting another copy of the book, but this really is going to be the best of both. And so, yeah, so that's it. Deshazia, go see the Church. They're outstanding. It's beautiful, beautiful. But thank you for being here, and I will see you in Discord, and we'll tighten it up even a little bit more for next month. So thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you guys soon.